All right. So, yeah, focusing, I feel like, the farther along in this journey that I get, I find that focusing on the self-help portion of things is a really big part of gentle parenting. And it's also what I kind of like personally, it's what still really inspires me to talk about. I was saying right before I started recording, um, as my children get older and, as the journey progresses, I find it a lot more inspirational and a lot more spot on to myself, and also supportive of gentle parenting, to talk about the us portion of things, the how can I be the person I want to be, and how can I show up for my children and my family and my loved ones, in the ways that I want to show up. And, you know, at the end of the day, I feel like gentle parenting really comes down to that, anyways. Like, how we show up in the world is, um, will begin to reflect on our relationships, and particularly with our children. And, in that way, um, we get closer to being the person that we want to be and the gentle parent that we want to be. Because we can philosophize all day long about how to be gentle, but really it comes down to like healing ourselves and showing up as the version of ourselves that feels best to us. Um, People talk a lot about this cliche about how you have to learn to love yourself. And, I grew up hearing that, and I heard it through my adulthood, and I never really understood what it meant, because on one level I was like, I mean, I love myself. I mean, I can hang with my company. Um, of course, I get down on myself and I'm my own biggest judge. And I'm like, well, I don't really understand what that means to love myself. And I feel like that cliche of like loving ourselves, it's so non-self-explanatory. Like, um, so I've been thinking about that a little bit lately. What does it mean to love yourself? And how can you love yourself and show up for yourself? I know that, like, on that social level, where I like to start there and talk about that before I dive in deeper to like my thoughts on the topics and stuff. Um, on that social level, we've all been systematically kind of broken down from actually loving ourselves. We've been taught to doubt ourselves. We've been taught to, silence our own voices because our voices might be offensive. We've been taught to push our feelings down because our feelings might make somebody uncomfortable. Um, and then all of these, awesome. It's wonderful that you're here, and thank you for letting me know. Because when people drop off without actually telling me, then I get nervous. I'm like, oh my gosh, did I say something problematic? But I'm really glad you're here and you got to drop in for a minute, and we'll see you when you get back. um, so, um, as far as the whole like self love aspect, right? Like, we've really been broken down around that and taught to doubt ourselves. And it's really hard to love yourself coming from that premise to begin with, right? On So interestingly, when I like contemplate on the topic and break everything down, um, when I contemplate on the topic and I break everything down and think about it, there's a few different things that I think constitute self-love, that are actually things that we can put into practice. And that helps us to boost our sense of well-being and our sense of confidence, which translates to feeling better in our skin, feeling more comfortable, and doing some of our own personal work in ways that make us feel really good about ourselves. So one of the things that constitutes self-love is no, saying no, being comfortable with no, being comfortable sharing our feelings, being comfortable setting boundaries, that right there is one of the hugest pieces of self-love that was systematically taken away from us when we were young, when we were told, do as I say and don't talk back. That little combination there really shut down our ability to say no when something didn't feel good, when something didn't feel right. And one of the biggest pieces of taking back that sense of self is the ability to say no. And I don't mean with our children. Sometimes with our children, we absolutely need to say no, just as in any relationship. Sometimes we have to say no. Interestingly, it's a lot easier to say to our kids because of the power balance, right? And it's within power balances that the no is harder for us. And so generally speaking, I don't advocate that we practice this stuff on our children, like practicing saying no more with your kids, because that's not what it's about. But it's like really the values, and that ties into like the boundaries and the saying no and the setting things up the way that it feels good to us. Because when we lean into our values, then that's going to reflect in how we interact with everybody, and how we allow ourselves to like give ourselves space to live in our values and stuff like that. It really reflects and impacts our lives and our level of confidence. And so when I think about all of these things that I teach here, and it really breaks down to that, because when I think about all of the little bullet points of the things that I teach, emotional awareness and sharing our feelings and understanding our feelings, showing up for ourselves, showing up for our families in ways that feel good, being respectful of boundaries, our children's boundaries, our loved ones' boundaries, interacting with boundaries in a completely different way than we were taught to interact with boundaries, with the respect for autonomy and your boundaries are absolutely amazing and I respect them, as opposed to do as I say and don't talk back, right? And dialoguing around these things, and all the values and the different things that we lean into here as far as communication and all the different ways that we show up in life, they really equate learning to feel a sense of self-confidence, feeling like you're in your core center, being true to you. And being true to yourself is like the highest form of self-love that we can encounter when we can truly, make a decision, when you can say no and feel really confident, feel really good saying no, particularly to somebody who is, in your perception, somebody who is, either, but particularly somebody that you see as higher than you on the power scale, somebody where, where you'd feel that no catching in your chest because you're so afraid of the repercussions, but you really, really, really want to say it because it aligns with your values, and learning how to hold the boundaries in those situations where it's a little bit more difficult because of that power balance that comes out and the fear that comes around the power balance, that is one of the most empowering things when we finally get there to being able to say, this doesn't feel right to me. And I'm going to say no, and I'm going to pass. And I'm not afraid of the repercussions, or I will live with the repercussions, or whatever it is, right? And a true sense of confidence that really can't be found in many places besides truly seeing what matters to us around our values and being able to show up for those values in ways that we never were able to before because of the ways that we were taught and trained and programmed. So just continuing on this path and continuing to think about your values and like always, and this is one of the things that I say continually and I repeat again and again over and over because it's really important to me. It's like we've lived our whole lives people pleasing and trying to please other people and trying to give other people what they want and what they need, even if what they want and what they need comes at a great cost to us. And even when there's no reciprocation for that great cost, we continue to be programmed to do that, right? To just continue to be people pleasers and givers. And that never leaves us feeling completely good unless we consider our own selves within that. And breaking the cycle of being a people pleaser is really, really hard and super empowering. And on the other side of the people pleasing are other people who have learned that they matter a little bit more than that and have learned how to respect your boundaries as you respect their boundaries. And really wonderful friendships can be had once we learn how to interact with people on these different new wonderful levels. And so but the thing that I was saying, because I got a little sidetracked there, coffee, is that no matter who's telling you what to do or how to do it, like I never want, even me, like even if I'm telling you, you know, this is how it should be or something like that, I never want you to do that if it doesn't feel good to you. Like I want you to really think about your values and how it feels to you before you decide to even like try the advice that I give you, because I never want you to look back down the road and think, yeah, wow, Suchai told me this one thing to do and it just like, oh my gosh, I can still see I just so much shame, like I should have never done this thing, like, and I never ever want you to feel that. And so like my highest goal in spending time with all of you and in this space and everything is genuinely to help you get comfortable enough with who you are and your values and how you want to show up in life that when people come at you and, you know, you see them as like, you know, people with degrees or parents or doctors or all of these other people, and they come at you with how things should be or what they have to say. I just want to empower you to be able to sit with that enough to decide what feels exactly right to you before, like, you know, getting strong-armed or pushed around or bullied by anybody. So I will leave it at that and we'll get to the sharing portion of the call. Let me go ahead and shut off the recording here.